Could I request this be live and recorded for the public to listen to this information? Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Sablon, Executive Director for the CNMI Council on Developmental Disabilities. Welcome to our first ever CNMI Disability Policy Seminar. Welcome, and I'm truly honored to see such a diverse group of people gathered here today to discuss matters of utmost importance to our community. Legislators, your presence highlights the significance of policy development in ensuring the rights and inclusions of individuals with disabilities. Your commitment to understand and address the needs of our community is crucial for driving positive change. To our home and community-based services stakeholders, your expertise and frontline experience are invaluable in shaping effective policies that promote independence, dignity, and quality of life for individuals receiving home and community-based services. Today's seminar provides a unique opportunity for us to come together, exchange perspectives, and collaborate on actionable strategies that can strengthen disability policies and support systems in the CNMI. I encourage all of you to actively engage in discussions, share your insights, and contribute to the development of innovative solutions that address the challenges faced by individuals with disabilities and their families in the CNMI. Let us use this platform to build meaningful partnerships and advocate for policies that enhance access to essential services, uphold human rights, and foster an inclusive society. Thank you once again for your commitment and participation. I am confident that today's seminar will pave the way for positive advancement in disability policy in the CNMI. So I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Tafa Tupuola is the State Director for the Pacific Center in Human Security, formerly known as the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, USED in American Samoa. Her 30-plus years in the field led to the successful funding award of Centers for Medicaid Services. Money follows the person. It's a $4.75 million grant to provide transitional services to qualified individuals from institutions to communities of their choice. American Samoa is one of the 2 U.S. territories to receive a rare grant opportunity, whereas home and community-based services does not exist in any U.S. territory. Her experience with Money Follows the Person also allowed her to navigate the health policy elements necessary to build the home community-based system in American Samoa. Thank you, Tafa, and welcome. She's going to present up there. She can. Her PowerPoint is up there at the stage.
Good afternoon, and thank you. Thank you so much for welcoming me into the territory and into the chamber to share with you the experience of navigating and accessing a service that does not exist in any of the territories, and to also share the impact it has currently in our community and how we can make healthcare more accessible. So, first and foremost, I want to share this image. This image, we can take a look at it from a Pacific region, of what equity looks like for us as Pacific Islanders, or we can look at it of what this equity looks like in our own community. But first and foremost, I want us to look at this image, what equity looks like or should look like amongst the disability and aging community. Some of it may look like a funding resource, but if we look at it in a way why we need the amount of support that we do to look over the fence, or we can look at it that not everyone's the same and we need those extra support. Or we can look at it that not every household is the same. And I share with you today that this is how the household looks like for a family member with a disability or a family member with chronic conditions. So I will come back to this image, but I want this image to sort of set the tone in today's disability policy seminar as to why we're here and why we need champions, not just in CNMI, but in the Pacific. We are Pacific Islanders. I am here as a Pacific Islander. I'm not here as a Samoan. I'm here as a Pacific Islander because there's a Pacific way how we do things. No line, no borders. We do everything together as a family. Yeah. So let me share a little bit what long-term services and support. Some may see it as LTSS as an acronym. It's for those who may need assistance in eating, taking a bath, managing medication, grooming, walking. This is just some of the needed services to help care for our family members at home. So I want us to also keep this in mind when I'm talking about LTSS. This is what I'm saying, referring to. But let me share some of the demographic data, what American Samoa and CNMI looks like. Side by side, the similarities. Every 10 years, our population was dropping. An ongoing decrease. Aging population, 6.3% for American Samoa, 5.9% for CNMI. A lot of our moms and dads need care for at home. 85 years old and above as well. There's not many data that really captures people with developmental disability, but we do know that those, once they reach a certain age, they will need assistance in being cared for. The social characteristic data that is shared. We have grandparents taking care of our children with disabilities. 17.5% are living with their grandparents. Out of that data, 63.6 is responsible for basic needs in American Samoa. And CNMI, it's 49.3% of that data, of that 8.9%. Housing, just like American Samoa and the other Pacific Islands, our homes are multi-generational. When one is affected, we're all affected as a household. And so I share with you what the census has shared earlier this year in February. They showed that the top reason why Pacific Islanders are moving away from the Pacific territories, 1 is employment, 2 military, 3 housing, 4 is family related issues. So we can comfortably say that multi-generational homes do exist in our territories. We can also say it affects our family. That when one moves to access healthcare, we all move. We all move. We do share the same type of healthcare where we seek medical referral off island. But what is the purpose of returning back home if we can't get the care? At the end of the day, it's accessing healthcare. I want to share this challenge of economic security. American Samoa, the median household income is 28,539. CNMI, 31,362. But the alarming number is the poverty. So some of the common factors, and you'll see there's a infographic in your handout. Some of the common factors amongst caregivers for LTSS is the fact that we give up our employment to care for the family member. And we are unpaid caregivers. So this third bullet means a lot to me, and it's the fact that you get no Social Security credits as an unpaid caregiver. And by not having Social Security credit, you get no Social Security income. So I'm going to share this real true story about the Social Security credits. My mother took care of my dad for 3 years until he passed away. He needed ongoing bathing, caring, changing, feeding, dressing. When she was eligible for Social Security, she went to the Social Security office and found out she didn't have enough credits. And my mom is not alone. We have so many other Pacific families that are struggling with the same story. But there's no way that they're going to be recognized for Social Security credits or have a way of being paid as a caregiver. So the Center for Medicaid Services has two types of models. One is facility-based and the other one is home community-based services. The numbers below is just the number of the statute, but I don't want us to misunderstand some of the jargon when we go through, so I decided to include it in the slide. So one of the models is facility-based, and we can think of that like what Medicaid state plan looks like, paying for healthcare in the hospital. Then you can look at home community-based services, which is what is covered under a 1915 statute. The C waiver basically means it's waiving whatever restriction is in the Medicaid state plan to make it more feasible to deliver services from home. So these are two types of services that can be offered under this LTSS model. So home community-based targets 5 target population. One is the 65 years and over, 2, intellectual and developmental disability, 3, physical disability, 4, mental health and substance use disorder, 5 is other. So this can be, you can choose which target population you want to focus HCBS, and you can have this offered in the community, whether it's at home or in adult daycare or whatever is the approved setting. But you can recognize personal care services like any other caregiver. An individual can live at home. They don't necessarily have to live in a nursing facility or a hospital. So what makes American Samoa and CNMI unique in this Social Security Act is that we are covered under what they call a 1902 J waiver, or we can It applies to both of our territories. And so this 1902J waiver basically has some restrictions, but you can use it to waive something that may not be doable or feasible in our community, and I can get into that later. But there's a broad range of HCBS services. It can be case management service. Someone can come in and clean up your home, which is called homemaker, home health aid, personal care, and so forth. Also includes respite. So the list of services on the left is usually a very common one in an HCBS setting. And then you can add more, which is more bullets on the side. There's a long list of HCBS services. So I just put what can fit without looking like a lot of information. So what does that 1902J waiver looks like? You can apply it in many of the restrictions, and I'll show an example in the next slide, but you just cannot apply it in a FMAP, the federal matching. You cannot apply it for CAP funding or Medicaid payment for cover services. So here I have an example of what this may look like in our Medicaid state plan on the left. Currently right now, if you look at 2A, it says in accordance with the CFR for 40.167A, personal care services are provided by an individual who is qualified to provide such services and who is not a member of the family. So this is really a federal requirement that you cannot use family members, but American Samoa and CNMI are covered under this J waiver that can basically waive this restriction because we all know our family, we take care of our own family. So that's an example how you can invoke it. So there's a lot that needs to be done if there's any interest in moving towards an HCBS system. You have to design policies in place, align it with the CMS regs, and then you also have to take a look at what does licensing, seeing caregivers as a profession. What does that licensing look like? What does licensing look like for a facility? An adult daycare? Um, it could be another agency. You would also have to look at what services you would need, identifying that, but then you also have to build the workforce for those services. And then in order for you to recognize these services and then the providers as a profession, you would have to build a payment method. So there's a lot of moving pieces when you're looking at an HCBS system. But I also want to say that just like American Samoa, we struggle with not enough professions in the field of health policy. There's a lot of champion that needs to be done, and it takes a lot of energy to move it forward. But we, as a community, often think that it's a lot to do. But imagine what our community would look like if it was done 20 years ago. At some point, we need to stop kicking the can and pick it up. So I want to share what money follows the person. We don't have HCBS in any of the territories, but what was interesting about money follows the person is that when we applied, we knew we didn't have HCBS. But what we did read was that it didn't say the territories couldn't apply. So we applied and took the chance. And we lucky, and I would say, thank you, Jesus, for giving us an opportunity to get our foot in the door and see how we can design what HCBS should look like. So, what is Money Follows the Person? In January 2022, CMS has supplemental services to be covered 100%, no matching, 100% covered under the Money Follows the Person grant. It's a one-time service. It's a short-term services that is covered under that it'll pay for services not covered under Medicaid. And that's only good for 365 days. So as I shared, it's 100% funded under the grant. So who is eligible? You first have to be qualified for Medicaid. Um, you must be institutionalized for about 60 days. And the cost to live in the community must be lesser financially than it is to be cared for in an institution. So the supplemental services can cover short-term housing, home modification, utility bills for 6 months, vehicle modification, food security, any type of HCBS coverage, and what it costs to transition. So, just like American Samoa, we have more than one island. We have several islands that make up our island, that makes up the territory. When I say transitioning costs, if you were released from your hospital and you live in Rota, we will cover the costs. We, as in Money Follows the Person, can cover the costs where the person chooses to live and go back home. So it'll cover the cost of their living expenses where they choose. In some cases, when we go on medical referral, if you're being treated off island, you can count that as institutionalization. But it needs to be written that that is recognized as institutionalization, that you can count day one when they're off island, that when the 60 days and they want to return back home, they will be able to qualify. Once again, it's a matter of being put in a document recognizing that as institutionalization. So that is what is interesting about living on an island. So I come back to this again because Money Follows the Person covers the transitioning from the facility into the community. Okay. So I shared about what that timeline looks like. At the end of the day, we still need to have a 1915C waiver, which is an HCBS plan that when they finish the transitioning phase on day 365, day 366, we must have a plan. I shared a little bit about this HCBS system, but I want to show you how challenging it can be to build the infrastructure. So on the bottom, under supplemental services, you would have to have an occupational therapist. They would need to do home assessment to see what needs to be modified around that individual's need. If what does housing look like? Are they returning home or are they going to rent? What does and what the qualification will look like for the contractors. You would also need to take a look under HCBS. Who will you enroll as a new provider? Who are your qualified HCBS providers? and then taking a look at what CMS requirements look like. What are your caregivers' requirement? So that is under capacity building. And then what does the regulations look like when you're modifying a home? What does the regulation look like for HCBS providers? As mentioned, what are the qualifications? So a lot of that is more administrative code. And then when you have everything in place, what is your payment method? You can have an operational protocol that basically can establish all this. But if a caregiver wants to be self-employed and be that full-time or 8 hours or 4 hours for that individual, they can be a self-employed provider. But you still would need to have a payment method. So one thing good about Money Follows the Person is that even though we have an FMAP in place, it does increase, have an influence on their FMAP for that specific individual, which is called the enhancement rate. An enhanced rate, it's well, the max you can get as a recipient of Money Follows the Person is that individual's FMAP changes. And so currently right now for CNMI, it's 83%. And when they exit on day 366, it can actually increase to 90%, which is the max allowed. So they call this enhanced rate. So I share with you everything about HCBS, and I know there's a lot of lingo in it, and some may be new language, but I bring us back to this image again. Um, I bring us back to this image again and say, now, instead of adding an extra platform for us to step on, or instead of removing the fence, what if we were all part of the fans in the stand? Sometimes we think access is about the extra support or it's about removing the fence, but perhaps it's about also sitting in the stand. And I leave and end my presentation with that image, with the anticipation to share more of how we can work together as a Pacific Island community. So thank you.
Does any of our policymakers would like to ask questions? I know this is a lot of information, new information maybe. If you would like, you can pose your question.
Hi, Tifa. Sorry, can I ask a question? So, American Samoa has applied for this grant and has been awarded this grant. Um, when was the last time that you guys got an award? Was it last calendar fiscal year?
We were awarded for 5 years. So we were awarded September 2022. It's a 5-year grant. When the omnibus bill was signed in December 2022, it included an additional extended year of funding.
Is your grant application available? So, I mean, obviously there's similarities in terms of culture. Would that be, is that available for like a model that we can possibly take a look at? I mean, I know there's copyright stuff, but just to kind of look at how this application process is. I know that there's a huge number of aging individuals in our community. And now we're seeing the opposite happen, right? They're alone here and their families now have to come back. And the problem to that is this kind of out migration from their home and then back to their actual home, which is here, right? They're Um, and what we're seeing is that there are no opportunity for that transition. We're going backwards
Mhm.
now, right? So did American Samoa consider that in the application? Is that even allowable um, in the application?
So there's several answers to your
Mm-hmm.
question. Um, so yes, I've been working closely with the DD Council, Miss Pam Sablon, on trying to learn about money follows the person. Um, the grant application, um, you know, it took a lot. We had to submit it in less than 4 weeks when we found out. Um, but in navigating HCBS, we knew it was really the data that basically supported our argument. But we've been sharing a lot of our information from the grant application with our partners, because CNMI, I always share this, is that CNMI and American Samoa is basically split at birth. There's so much similarity in what we share, especially amongst the disability and aging community. So, in the migration and transitioning part, in navigating money follows the person, we also realize that we have a lot of family members that are still abroad, but in order for them to return home, they still need to finish up their healthcare treatment. So it's really about what your operational protocol looks like. If you put it in your operational protocol, design it around what we're experiencing now, which is one, getting them from the institution into the home. Two, what does institutionalization look like for medical referral to return home? Three is that if they're part of Money Follows the Person in the state of Hawaii, they can finish returning home here and complete the 365 days. The restriction is that it's a one time offer. So if you finish your 365 days abroad, you cannot continue it when you return home. But what I do want to say is that it does allow us to extend transitioning beyond Saipan, the main island, because we just need to put in the operational protocol that American Samoa has 7 islands or 6 islands, or CNMI has, and that the cost to transition is not added to the analysis, the financial feasibility portion, because it's an equity issue. Mhm.
So, in terms of grant application, is this something that the tri-agency network applies for as a whole, or is this just taken as a function from one of the tri-agency network?
There still needs to be a lead agency in submission. It could be from the DD Council, it could be from the USED. The only reason why we submitted from a USED is because when we found out that the announcement went out, we really reached out to a lot of our USED partners to kind of gather information, um, because we knew that since don't have HCBS, this is an opportunity to get our foot in the door to try and access HCBS. So it's with the anticipation that within this money follows the person, we can gather enough data, the services that is needed to feed into the 1915C application. So that we had to be very creative what is allowed in the money follows the person. But at the end of the day, we still need more health policy people that can commit to designing home community-based services?
If I may, so we've been working closely with the FA. The council submitted an application for the TAP grant to build capacity in health policy specialists, as well as fund a comprehensive review and analysis of this Medicaid system, and provide us a gap analysis. So these are the components needed for us to be ready to apply for this money follows the person funding. And based on, our technical assistance from TAFA, those are the components needed. So hopefully we get selected to um, conduct this comprehensive review. We submitted, I think it was February. So we're waiting for the governor to see if that we were selected as one of his priority areas, because the study needs to be moved in order for us to prepare in case CMS announces that this funding opportunity is available. And it looks like maybe with we're hearing that there may be funding. So we just need to prepare ourselves as a CNMI to provide this review, comprehensive review and analysis, and gap analysis, which is a component of our application with the Department of Interior. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for making your way to the CNMI so you can share your knowledge, and hopefully we can piggyback and help with this whole process. One of the questions I have is, obviously you present that you have to be Medicaid qualified first and foremost, correct?
Correct.
And that's obviously salary based or income based on a person's annual income, correct?
So for American Samoa, the qualification would be different. It would depend on what's in your Medicaid state plan. And I think in CNMI's, I think you have to be SSI eligible.
And yet, in order and for other members of the community to qualify for Medicaid, it's also income based, correct?
Correct.
And the unfortunate thing for the CNMI and American Samoa is income base is not calculated at the territory level. It's calculated at obviously in the federal level, right? I think maybe one of the things that we should consider in this application is to include the cost of living within the territories, because a person making $31,000, for example, the numbers that you threw up, living in Montana can survive without Medicaid. A person making $31,000 in American Samoa and the CNMI can't take care of their everyday needs without trying to apply for Medicaid and obviously not qualifying for Medicaid. I think that's one of the things that we need to include in this presentation. Obviously, we hope that it's a continuous appropriation by U.S. Congress to cover the matching. Because I don't know, in American Samoa, is there another type of retirement plan, or is it just Social Security?
We do have a government retirement plan
Is-
for government workers.
And is that 20-year service, or is it age-based service?
20 years of service.
And that's our
And-
challenge, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of our elders retired at 20 years space service, while prior to becoming a territory, they calculated their years of service under Social Security. So they're receiving Social Security and their retirement base, which unqualifies them for this type of service. So I think one of the things that we need to make sure is our income in the territories equitable to our survival in regards to medical treatment or I don't know, home services. I think that's the one thing. If there's any data that we need, it's that. because everything else that we're going to talk about, it's going to be decided in DC, and they're not the
Mhm.
ones that are sitting or walking our routes over here, living the day-to-day life. The cost of whatever milk there is 50 cents a gallon. Here in the CNMI, it's $5 a gallon. So the dollar doesn't stretch as much as it does over there. And that's one of the things that's needed, is to make sure that our day-to-day cost of living is included in this package, because we can't expect people in DC to understand what we're going through when they're making decisions out there that's going to cover everybody
Mhm.
else, right? And I know that the CNMI is at 83.17 now, but even at 83.17, we're having a difficult. Uh, we're having difficulty in meeting our matching, and with our financial economic situation right now in the CNMI, there's more people that are qualified for Medicaid, and makes it more unaffordable for the government to match that 17%. I know we can go up to 91%, but again, we're still kind of hurting ourselves, because we have a retirement plan of that 20-year service that's still in existence. And a lot of these guys retired in their late 30s, early 40s. They're just hitting their 50s, and imagine that's another 20 years of, based on the data that you presented. Now that 85 and above is going to increase in the next
Absolutely.
10, 15 years, and they're still not going to qualify because their income is beyond the qualifications for Medicaid. I think, just on the base level, and if there's policy that needs to be done, I think we can work with the DD Council team in coming up with policies, provided that the professionals will come up with the regulations, because we don't want to set anything on policy in stone or in a law that's going to hamper the regulations from changing down the road. So that's what's hurting us right
Mhm.
now, right? I think that's one of the things that we should work with. At least put a put a legislation together, that's skeleton, to allow the policy to be governed by the regulations moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, so one of the conversation that I had with the DD Council is that, and this is my personal opinion, as living in the Pacific Islands, that perhaps a formula does not do us justice. If we were to look at this image, share it up here, and think of all the federal policies that may restrict us, that we're paying additional fees for. If we look at living on the island and the cost of equity that is not directly serving us, but we're indirectly impacted by, then maybe we need to take a look of what that looks like. But we don't have the data to say what the cost of equity looks like as a Pacific Islander. Um, Again, that's just my opinion, but I really believe what you said is very accurate. Living on the Pacific Island needs to be experience of the hardship. We only have one hospital. That's a similarity with us. We don't have many health policy people to kind of bridge the gap of health equity. But I do know that we have family members that are not being paid for to be caregivers. And I do know that getting PTs and OTs is twice the challenge. And so I'm going to share something that is another equity issue in meeting the needs of the disability community. American Samoa doesn't have a PT/OT degree program, which means we cannot fulfill the needs of special education when it comes to PT/OTs. So when I looked into how we can develop and build the capacity of PTOTs, that didn't make a difference. You know why? Because in order for if we were to get a grant to to build the capacity of PTOTs, we need a full-time PTOT in the first place to teach these courses. So even if we got adjuncts, part-time people, even that didn't matter if they graduated, because in order for you to sit the boards, it has to be an accredited PTOT program. So then you think about, where can you reach out in the Pacific region is the nearest Pacific OT accredited program, and the nearest one is Hawaii. But then again, I just shared the data about people leaving and not returning. And we all know as islanders, once they leave, it's not guaranteed they're going to come back home. Again, they leave, it impacts our population, it impacts the formula that comes to our territory. It's not self sustainable. Equity, to me, in my own opinion, is a different language. It's a band aid, because there's more deeply rooted issues that intersects with equity. Sorry, I get emotional as because living on the island, there's a lot. You think you champion one thing and you find out later, no, it's other deeply rooted issues.
Thank you, Tafa, for the very fruitful presentation. Thank you, Pam and the DD Council, for bringing this issue up to our attention. I guess my question is out of your presentation, because American Samoa was granted this grant, and you have mentioned that under the omnibus bill, there's an extension up to 5 years. So if and when that maturity date comes, so it means that the government should be sustainable at that time. Is that correct?
It means we should have an HCBS fully in place. Yes.
And sustainable.
And sustainable.
Okay.
We are still doing research. So I'm no expert in HCBS, but in navigating HCBS, I've gotten to learn more and more where the gaps are at and why we don't have it in the territories. I do know the reason why we don't have it in the territories, because it does demand a lot of work. A lot of work, a lot of bravery, a lot of commitment, but we can't make it happen without partnership.
And my second question to you, Tafa, is that all this application to apply this grant follows the state plan of the territory, right? And you've mentioned that you've reviewed the state plan of our Medicaid office, and only the clienteles of that can avail to this program was the SSI you mentioned earlier, right?
So I'm not familiar with the CNMI Medicaid state plan, but I do know that in order for us to apply for money follows the person, we could not have done it without the support letter from our local Medicaid office. So we had to work a lot with our Medicaid officer director to get the support to apply. So it's a cooperative agreement grant.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Good afternoon, Hafaday, and thank you, Ms. Sablan, and as well as Ms. Duff, for coming in and presenting to the legislature. I just wanted to see how this MFP would work with, I guess, other islands within American Samoa in terms of providing this service. Or I know you mentioned earlier that this would allow the individual to choose where they would like to reside, but what about the issue of, are those follow-up services available within those islands? I represent Rhoda, which is the least populated of the three, and we send a lot of our patients over to Saipan, and most of them ending up living in government housing here, which is funded by the municipality, which we're trying to, I guess we're having this challenge of continuing to be able to provide for those services. So I just wanted to see how that would work with American Samoa with this MFP, and how, I guess, how other islands, how your smaller islands, your least populated islands would benefit from this, and having to choose an island that may or may not offer I don't
All
know,
the
all the
services.
services that they would otherwise get in the main island.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Senator. The money follows the person does allow you to spend a big portion on capacity building. So it's a matter of whoever is administering the grant, if there's an opportunity to apply and get awarded, to be as innovative as possible. And I think a great example is if the outer islands from American Samoa, someone wants to return back home, it would depend on the need of the individual. But then it also makes more sense if you build the capacity there of caregivers. So we do have a caregiver program at American Samoa Community College that we do use and access, but it's also a matter of covering them in a home community based application. So that application will be very important to be able to build a capacity in the outer islands. What commonly happens is sometimes outer islands are forgotten in various trainings and capacity building. But I think this is why stakeholder councils are very good to have a diverse representation across the territory. And so hopefully they can also champion the needs of that outer island.
Thank you. And lastly, would you say this is comparable to like the CCDF? Well, at least from what I'm seeing on Rhoda, the Child Care Development Fund essentially pays for our caretakers of children who are not of age to go to school yet, or when children come home after school. And so I guess I've seen this capacity building amongst the community, where people are now venturing into that space, and rather than going to work, they're staying home to care for their grandchildren or their nieces or nephews. Would that be similar then, in this sense, where this person we can offer people that option of either, or I guess in the similar sense of these child caretakers?
Thank you for the question. So if I understand the question correctly, or the service, it's really driven by a state plan, yeah? So if the 1915C waiver application, or in money follows the person, yeah? If an individual requires daycare service or adult daycare service, then it's a matter of one, building the capacity of providers, and then it's also, is there someone there that would like to see it as an economic opportunity to open up an adult daycare? Because I think the child care service, it max at a certain age, yeah, and then another adult day service can be offered. So then at the end of the day, a family member can go and work, because we know the needs are being met to take care of mom and dad, and then you can pick them up and return back home. But right now, somebody else is it's really a family member that's taking care of them at home.
All right. Thank you.
Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Just one question. So with this program and stuff, would it be like available for like hospice care or nursing home services through this?
Um, I'm not too sure about the facility in regards to nursing home, but I do know it's the service that makes it an allowable activity. Yeah. So in some cases where you can have a nursing home, but the care is personal care service, that may be an allowable expense. It would depend on the plan or the protocol that you put in place um, to make it an allowable cost.
Chair, can I ask a question? So I guess in terms of this waiver, was your delegate influential in the waiver process, in the dialogue through this grant? Were they participating, I guess, partners in the development and the process through this? I mean, did they lobby for
Oh,
you? Were they involved in any way in the communications at all?
no. Um, this was all the work of our USED at
Mhm.
the time. Um, I heard of Money Follow the Person since 2018, 2019. And so just about 4 years ago, it just kept surfacing in many of the network conversation. And all I just kept wishing was that we had Money Follows the Person at home. And slowly but surely, 2 years, a year leading up to the funding announcement, I had asked for a lot of technical assistance from partners, from networks, from the USIDs abroad who do have the grant. And they shared a little bit about home community based services. And I knew I had to learn
Mhm.
and study that first. And when Money Follows a Person's announcement came out, I put in with whatever knowledge I had at the time. And just from that experience, I can tell you that all these years that in hearing HCBS, I thought it was another exclusion of the territories. We all experienced that, the exclusion of the territories. But when we were awarded, and I understood it a little bit more, it's not a matter, it was not about the exclusion of the territories. It was the fact that we never made an effort to try.
And the reason why I asked that to Fosh is because if you're thinking about access, right? So if it's anything like the Cabotage Act, I mean, you guys have been successful with that. And that took a lot of partners. It took a lot of the community to come together and say, hey, look, we need this waiver. We need this exemption, right? In order to provide this access, whether it be, towards medical referral in Hawaii and the price of, airline tickets. But, and I guess that's why I asked is because American Samoa has been very instrumental in kind of molding what this future looks like. And if this was something that you see, obviously, that it's needed. And the long term need for this is not a band-aid solution anymore, right? I mean, at some point we're going to be 66, 75, 80, and we will need
Mhm.
this type of service. So I guess in terms of what Rep Atto said, it would be really up to the agencies to kind of develop what that looks like, right? And then we can work together as policymakers to ensure that the safeguards are there.
Mhm.
I think the Autism Act did something like that, but not home care, but it allowed the public school system to now develop services in terms of speech therapy,
Mhm.
occupational therapy. So it's not impossible. I think it can be done. It's just another need again to look at. So thanks, Steph. I appreciate it. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tafa and members of the House and Senate. So we're going to continue our program. We have other presenters that are coming up. Our self-advocate leaders presentation on disability laws in the CNMI. We have Emmett Fittiel. Material Fittiel is the Vice Chairman for the Council on Developmental Disabilities, as well as the Chair for the Consumer Advisory Committee from USED. He's going to present his position. Thank you.
Tiro and half a day, and good afternoon. My name is Emmett Fittiel, and I am a self-advocate, the Vice Chairperson for the CNMI Council on Developmental Disabilities, and the CNMI USED Consumer Advisory Committee Chairperson. Today, I am here to advocate on behalf of all people with disability in the CNMI. I would like to advocate for more engagement and follow-up on the enforcement and improvement of CNMI Public Law 1765 to increase penalties for parking in a space reserved for the use of persons with disabilities and to be consistent with the American with Disability Act and guidelines. Thank you.
Up next is Hannah Igisire. She is the president for Voices of the CNMI Saipan chapter. Voices of the CNMI. Voices means very outspoken individuals can each succeed. So I'm going to play her. Sorry about that. Excuse me.
Turo, Hafa Dayan, good afternoon, honorable members. My fellow advocate and our CNMI people. My name is Hannah Ijizire. I am the president of the Voices of CNMI and I am a webmaster of CLI as well. Today, I am here to advocate on behalf of all people with disability in CNMI. I would like to advocate and follow up on improvement of the CNMI Public Law 20-43. We need to go out there after finishing school and experience life what it is. Without our parents, we know that they need to take a break from taking care of us, at least once a week or 2 weeks. Why do they have to take a rest? We know that they have to do something out there without any children around them. We hope that the government will open another center for us. From there, our parents would have time more to do something like pay bills and go to the clinic for a day, while we were taken care of. To repeal and reenact Title III, Division 2, Chapter 4, Article 3 of the Commonwealth Code, to designate the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs as the program administering authority for the Respite Services Program.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay. Up next, we have Dorison Taiting Fung. She is the secretary for the Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Yeah. Half a day and good afternoon, honorable members, my fellow advocates, and our CNMI people. My name is Dorson Taitingfung. I am the secretary for CNMI Council on Developmental Disabilities Board and a student at Northern Marianas College. Today, I am here to advocate on behalf of all people with disabilities in the CNMI. I would like to advocate the follow-up on updates on the CNMI Public Law 1981 and what can do to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorison. Up next, we have Jesse Terragetsu. Oh, sorry. Cherry May Penaranda. She is also a member of the council representing Tinian.
Good afternoon, honorable members, my fellow advocates, and our CNMI people. My name is Cherime Christoria Pinaranda. I come from the beautiful island of Tinian. I am a board member of the CNMI Council on Developmental Disabilities, member of the CNMI UCEDD, Consumer Advisory Committee, and a graduating student at the Northern Marianas College. I am happy to say that I will be graduate this week, Friday, May 17, 2024. Thanks. On Saturday, May 18, 2024, I will be returning back to my home on the island of Tinian. I am here today to advocate for more employment opportunities for all people with developmental disabilities and disabilities in the CNMI. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Cherry May. And for our closing remarks, we have Ms. Eileen Alapuzu Babauta, Program Director for the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, housed under the Northern Marianas College. Thank you.
Hafiz and Tiro, honorable members. As we conclude this crucial seminar on disability policy, I want to extend our deepest gratitude to all of you for your active participation, thoughtful contributions today, and hope that today inspires you. The discussions and insights shared here have undoubtedly paved the way for meaningful advancements in our approach to disability inclusion. What resonates profoundly from our deliberations is the importance of inclusive policies that recognize the diverse needs and capabilities with individuals with disabilities. As policymakers, you have a critical role in shaping legislation and initiatives that promote equity, access, and empowerment for all. Let us leave here with a renewed commitment to advocate for change, to challenge the status quo, and to implement policies that foster genuine inclusion. Our collective efforts have the power to transform societies, creating opportunities and breaking down barriers. I urge each of you to carry forward the momentum gained from this seminar and let us work together across sectors and boundaries to ensure that the voices of persons with disabilities are not only heard but acted upon. In closing, I encourage you to continue the dialogue beyond this seminar, engaging stakeholders and communities in our shared mission. Together, we can build a future where disability is not a limitation, but a part of diversity that enriches our CNMI and our Pacific societies. Thank you once again for your dedication and commitment. Let's embark on this journey to change with determination and compassion. Sedus Masi.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to, there's resources there that are made available. And there also is a open discussion invitation that we provided you. I think our policymakers got an invitation, and you're invited to that so we can have more conversation regarding the home and community-based services, and money follows the person. And we'll talk about what the council and our partners are doing, what initiatives we're working towards, and thankful for Tafa coming here and sharing her insights, and how we can help the CNMI improve our services. So that is following. You have the invitations there provided in your packet, and we look forward to you joining us today. I think it's there. Is it there? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Crown Plaza. Yeah. Yes, yes. So thank you so much, and for your support. And we look forward to working with you all to move this initiative forward. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Thank you.